What's up?
Brohood Productions is back with another Hall of Justice podcast episode. And as you can tell, as JP is sporting one of my favorite jackets ever, we are having a Marvel-filled episode today. And it's a very important episode because,
We're gonna talk about why we need more Marvel movies. Why it needs to continue after Secret Wars.
so as you guys know, we are getting Fantastic Four, Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Doomsday, and Avengers Secret Wars. That is the next slate of Marvel movies. That's it.
That's it, and Marvel's in limbo because I think if we took a vote in the general population, people don't care about Marvel. They don't care about the movies that have been coming out, and they've kind of just like crumbled after everything that has happened. So
And we enjoyed Thunderbolts
we did, even though it lost money.
a lot of money. So we want to generate the conversation here about why Marvel needs to continue and why do you need this potential soft reboot that is most likely going to happen. So, in order to do that, JP and I we're going to nerd out a little bit, talk about Avengers Doomsday, Avengers Secret Wars, and then try to hone down the message of why it's important. And we're going to briefly talk about how we think that should be. And then later, if you guys want us to keep talking about it, to talk about how we would reboot or continue a Marvel soft reboot. So, without further ado, tell me about why you are excited for Avengers Doomsday.
Well, I'm mostly excited because of Robert Downey Jr. Not only that, I mean, it's going to be awesome to hear him speak, and I'm sure they're going to have a lot of visual effects. And in the theaters, you're going to feel his voice, his wrath, his villainousness. How do you explain that? His
It's great.
uh, but I just think he's an awesome villain. Anyhow, I lost my train of thought. But Doomsday. So I think this is like the first. Also, I'm also excited because it's the first time a big bad villain. I mean, like you look back a few movies like Shang-Chi, maybe the villain was himself and his dad. You know, and you look back at Thunderbolts. It was at one point, I mean, it was Val, and then at one point it was the Sentry, but then he became good. And before that,
I mean, your big bad was supposed to be King the Conqueror. So,
yeah, and that never ended up happening. So just gonna be great. A movie with a big bad villain like Thanos, and it's just gonna be great. So for those reasons, I'm excited.
there
You?
you go. Mainly Doctor Doom and seeing the Avengers squad back together because they mean something to us. You know, these movies really mean something to us in the fandom. And I think I've shared this before, but I think I just want to share it here with you on our podcast. This is what I think is going to happen in Avengers Doomsday. And I don't know if they're doing this. I don't know what the Russo brothers are thinking. Apparently, there was an idea that was pitched before they jumped on to the project. So this is the first 15 minutes. You guys remember how that horrible movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, ended with the Council of Kangs? You guys remember that? So imagine that scene, and all of a sudden there is a major space tunnel bridge that opens up. And out of this space tunnel bridge arrives Doctor Doom. And for the first 15 minutes, you establish why he's the big bad villain.
Ah, yeah.
Takes down
Getting
every
chills.
single Kang variant. And you can establish that the true King the Conqueror was defeated. And Doctor Doom doesn't like that because he wanted to meet that version of Kang. And maybe that's why he's still out there somewhere, potentially for Secret Wars, and there can be another big battle between him. and King the Conqueror.
Mm.
But take the 15 minutes to show he's the big
Why?
bad,
Why you should be scared of
why
him?
you should be scared of him. And so the audience knows why they're supposed to be scared of him, right? And this entire time, you can do whatever you want. You can have the Silvestri Avengers theme, but on a darker, deeper tone. Cool to
Yeah,
me. Sounds
yeah,
awesome to
yeah.
me. And then you shift gears and you show the what does Doctor Strange Clea call it? An incursion. You see the incursion happening at some point. This is where it's a little fumbled for me. And you have the new Avengers and the Avengers, and you have the Fox X-Men universe about to duke it out. And the entire time that this is happening, Doctor Doom shows up. People are like, "Oh my gosh, it's Tony." It's not really Tony, right? But because we have to have it in the movie. And he explains to them what's happening, what they need to do. So then you have the two teams that split up. But the entire time in the background, we know that Doctor Doom is a bad guy and he's doing things behind the scenes. He gets these two teams distracted, or the X-Men and the Avengers fighting each other while he's trying to get to Loki. So when he's trying to get to Loki, everybody finds out what he's trying to do. And that's where we might find out why Thor is crying. That's where Thor and Loki might meet up again. But the entire movie hinges on Doctor Doom being a big bad. The whole movie is about Doctor Doom. It is called Doomsday. Something bad is going to happen. Again, like Infinity War, but you have this because to me, this is my biggest problem. Is he just a variant? Are we only getting Doctor Doom for two movies and then you're just gonna take him away? Is he not going to play a bigger part in the later part of the universe? I don't like that. You try to do that with our guy Kang. Don't do that to Doctor Doom. And then the whole point of Doctor Doom trying to get to Loki is that Doctor Doom wants to make the universe in his image.
Mm.
Then, of course, somehow you make that lead into, so that's my preliminary idea. Then you lead it into Secret Wars, where you're going to have one of the
Battle
biggest
World,
crossover ever.
all the variants.
Something big is happening in Secret Wars. But the whole point of Secret Wars is because Marvel potentially is heading towards a soft reboot. So if we're going to a soft reboot, why is a soft reboot necessary?
You know, Alma and I, before this video, edited video comes out, we had a big long conversation about this. We watched a video about how this other person would reboot it. And we talked a lot about how, but really I think we had to establish why. Why does it need to keep going? Because we were talking about this, but we're like, why is, you know, people aren't liking Marvel movies. I'm gonna categorize this guy where believed like and now he doesn't, and all these other movies are coming out, but he's like, I'm not sure if I really want to watch it. I don't- you know how did you say?
I just think people have jumped ship.
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
had they had faith. They stayed on the boat for a while and they're like, well, this isn't working out, so I'm gonna head to port and not really get on the boat anymore.
So we were talking a lot about that and just how everyone feels because honestly, Alma and I and the rest of the nerd community, it doesn't matter what comes out. We're gonna watch it. We're gonna support it. But we want it. We were talking about how we want it, like, um, how the first phase, the Infinity Saga was in the beginning. Since 2008, 2009, all the way to 2012. We remember this time that people came to us and asked questions, and like the high schools that we went to, everyone was involved. Everyone talked about it, like, oh, this next movie, what's next? We kind of wanted to, not that we have people like come and ask us questions, but we want everyone involved and liking it as much as we like it. And there was a time when people liked it as much as we did, and they were excited for the next movie. They couldn't wait for the next movie. They're like, how's it gonna end? All this stuff. So we wanted to talk about why, because if they do reboot, but they don't have a why they want to continue, honestly, it like how Marvel has just done this, it could just disappear. It could disappear. Everything could vanish, and Alma was saying like the Marvel brand wasn't going to continue, but somehow it was going to. Somehow it is going to. But we want to talk about that, yeah.
No, I mean, like think about it this way, y'all, because we're just trying to have a natural conversation here. Is what if it didn't exist anymore? That would be really hard for us, right? We enjoy these stories, we love these stories, we love these characters. So in order for it to continue, there needs to be a reason for it to continue. There needs to be a purpose. Um, and so what JP is referring to is, for example, everyone is going to bring up Infinity War and Endgame. And we're going to talk about how Marvel wasn't the same after that. But why are we going to blame two amazing movies? Because again, that's where JP and I have our counter argument against superhero fatigue, is that we weren't fatigued. They were good stories. They were great movies.
Great character.
Great character.
Great stories around the characters.
So,
People don't have superhero fatigue. It's not like too many movies were coming out. People were used to watching 3 movies a year
mhm.
about this. It wasn't about that. It was about people don't care. People don't care about the characters right now. People don't care about the stories right now.
So yes, we had a culmination, and when you have like that big climax, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna talk about? And JP and I, we think that the beginning of the post Endgame era was just fine. We've talked about that. We don't have to we don't have to revisit that. And we've had pockets, we've had moments of awesome, right? But why is that? You can again, sure, you can have the opinion that you can blame it on those two amazing movies, but there were two amazing movies that were supposed to continue the Marvel universe, right? If you're going to introduce the multiverse and you're going to introduce a parallel universe, that's something fun to use to utilize. But did we lose along the way the reason why people went to go watch this movie?
Yes.
We are going to go continue watching these movies, but as you saw with Thunderbolts and as you see with different films, you know, Marvel is just fine right now, right? But a lot of people aren't as what we believe as interested in them as they used to be. So JPA found this really cool quote by Stan Lee that helps us think about the why behind we want Marvel to continue.
So I think for me personally, like these movies had to go on because, like Stanley says, he says he wanted young people to feel hope, courage, and a sense of belonging. So right there, we need movies about hope. We need movies about courage. We need movies of that feeling of belonging. And I think superheroes are one of the best movies to do that. Um, Alma should actually put a little um a snippet of what Stan Lee said in that video. What was it? Was that
I
like
mean,
the
it was that during that post-pandemic time, and it was time to come back to the movies. And Marvel did this really nice montage. I'm sure you guys saw it as we were getting excited for that secondary post-Endgame phase of movies. Because in that medium of movies, that's where we got excited. That's where we got hyped. That's where people came together. That's where people were having the conversations. People were excited about something. But I feel like outside of us, that excitement has kind of us meaning the fandom. And people might say, oh, that's okay. Yes, but there are still consequences for just us going and watching the movie, like with Thunderbolts. That's a one example out of the many Marvel movies that have succeeded. But what happens when they stop succeeding? What happens if the fatigue gets real because they're just not good stories? in the medium of films.
Hmm. One more thing. Stan Lee said he wanted to inspire and entertain, and he wanted to show that anyone can be a hero. He says that person who helps others simply because it should or must be done, and because it is the right thing to do, is indeed without a doubt a real superhero. So, I don't know. I think that really sums it up how these movie must continue because it can inspire us to do good. I mean, what's the point of life if we're not like helping each other? Like you said, yeah. So
So that is, hopefully we did a good job talking to you guys about why it's important to have this reboot
mhm.
because uh, something's been lost and we need to re-engage, we need to reconnect, we need to reconvene. So how do you do that? It's a really big question
It's a very difficult question.
because we can talk about why all the day. You guys can correct us, you guys can stand with us, you guys can disagree with us about why Marvel should continue, why Marvel hasn't uh, vanished, to use the Thanos term, and it hasn't, which is great. We're referring to the feeling behind Marvel, supporting Marvel in the movie type way. But how you reboot it, people can have great ideas. But if you have the why, how are you going to do it? Are you going to continue doing phases? JP disagrees. JP doesn't think that we should have phases.
It's not that I'm saying we don't have phases. I think it's nice that Marvel announces movies like, hey, but but this has to be like huge. Uh, I think in a way like it has to be so good that people are like, okay, we want more. And I think there still will be phases, but like it just needs to naturally when Iron Man came out and the first Avenger and then Thor, there's stories and the culminating events of the Avengers in 2012 was a natural thing that transpired. So I'm just saying like instead of being like phase one of this thing we're doing, no. We're gonna the main focus is just good movies, good stories, good characters that we can like really get into. That's it. That's the focus. Obviously, we have to think about the long term and where this is going. Well, it's just it's like it's gonna be like Disney. It's just it movies. I mean, their movies also, give hope and inspire. This is what Marvel's gonna do the same thing. But it's like, you know what? You're gonna start with this movie. We're gonna make it so good, and then we're gonna focus on the next one. And then little by little we'll reveal like this is what's going on. It's a larger picture or a larger thing, but yeah.
A refresh is needed. A soft reboot is needed. We need to re-engage. We've talked about the why. JP's added to how certain things have to work, get themselves out. So we'll talk more about more of a transformative, maybe not transformative is not the right word, a more thought out process about how. But JP and I have some groundwork that we wanted to try out, see what you guys think. When you do this soft reboot, you have to have interconnectivity. You should, JP and I agree with what's been discussed, where you need to have an interconnected universe where the heroes do exist. You own all the properties now, minus Spider-Man in some ways. But
Hulk.
Hulk, you know, the way we believe that in the soft reboot, the person that continues after with most of the memories, I mean, you can choose how many people continue after with knowledge of what's happened before. But we believe that the universe, the new soft rebooted Marvel universe, should be Spider-Man.
Spider-Man
Spider-Man,
focus.
Spider-Man focused, Spider-Man driven. Um, he's essentially Marvel's chosen one. He's Marvel's most popular superhero. So we believe that most people are going to gravitate towards Spider-Man. We think, and you can call them pillars, you can pull them, you can call them pinpoints, you can call them important characters. We think the second thing that you should hinge on is the X-Men. We think that the X-Men should be explored very systematically. We've had three X-Men movies, if you don't count Deadpool stuff and you can don't count Logan, that one of them did very well. The rest, people weren't very interested. People didn't like. I'm assuming some of us in the fandom were split, but most of us didn't like X-Men Apocalypse or X-Men Dark Phoenix. I don't think you want that. I think you want the X-Men from the comics that you love. I think you want a Cyclops that you can relate with. I think you want a Storm that you want everyone to know and love and experience on the big screen.
And I really want an origin story of Storm. Just something in.
So then we also think that Wolverine, being a popular character, should have his own film. But that's just three entities that we've thought about. A Spider-Man focused, Spider-Man driven universe, with the X-Men being a huge part of that. And then you can split it into solo hero movies. And that's where, we get kind of clunky. That's where we want some ideas from you guys. This is where we want the conversation to continue. Because if we live in this world where superheroes exist and interact with each other, you can do a lot with that. But what are the stories that you're telling? What are you trying to show in this medium, visual media of a movie? And how are both the fandom and the generic audiences going to continue to support this brand that we love?
Well, this is the other thing. That's why there shouldn't be phases in the beginning. It should just be like, let's tell a really good, awesome story. There's Spider-Man offers a lot of good stories that people can get around and get interested in. And then it's like, let's make X-Men just like super good. And then naturally, as time goes on, then think about, okay, how there is going to be interconnectivity. But it's not, interconnectivity is not immediately going to tell you what's going to happen. Because if you think about it, before we knew that Thanos was gonna, like, there was one scene at the end of Avengers, but that was over the course of a lot of movies before. Thanos wasn't even like really introduced until like Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's when you really saw him. But like at the end of Iron Man, you didn't know anything about Thanos. The end of Thor, you didn't know anything. Captain America: First Avenger, you didn't know anything about Thanos. So before any of that happens, where you line up all these movies that are gonna happen, you just need to tell a really good story of Spider-Man. There's this poster, really awesome poster here that I should just take a picture and like snapshot it right here after editing. Um, and then like Alma said, like the solo movie is gonna be Wolverine, and then like you build upon that. You build upon these other solo stories like Storm, do justice to Cyclops, you know. Yeah.
Well, we're having this conversation because we're not super concerned, but we are concerned. We value this brand, we value these characters. The hype for Marvel, besides us, is kind of gone. And we want to feel what we felt in the Infinity Saga every time we pick up a Marvel product. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but this is important. These are stories that need to be shared. These are stories that we need to relate to. And we believe that one of the best mediums to do that with is with superheroes.
Just like Stan Lee said, anybody can be a superhero.
You can wear the mask.
Yeah. So,
So we wanted to talk more about it with you, but we just wanted to take this podcast episode out of its normal type of routine and just have a conversation about why a soft reboot should happen, but why should Marvel even exist? Something along those type of lines, and to lay some groundwork on how we should start looking at the future of this universe.
yep.
So that's what we got for you guys today. Very different, very sluggish, maybe it's better if you just listen to us, maybe not necessarily watch us this time around. But we appreciate you guys. This channel is inspired by our baby brother Manny. We love this community. We love interacting with all of you. I am Alma the All-Star Superman, and this is JP the Hulk. Today, we wish you a great day.
And a great week, bro. Hoodell.